Hi, my name is Kari Sotner. I'm the president and CEO of Eastern State Penitentiary Historic Site in Philadelphia.
Thank you. Okay, now just getting into the first question. What inspired you to take leadership of the Eastern State Penitentiary, and how do you see your role as a woman shaping the future of justice education?
So what inspired me to take this role at Eastern State Penitentiary was really looking about how I can take my impact in education and go deeper. So a little bit of backstory. About 2015, I started a program when I worked at the Constitution Center called Policing in a More Perfect Union. And I worked with high school kids across Philadelphia to train police officers about what it was like to be engaged with police officers, and also to train police officers the interaction between police and community members over time in American history based on race. And so we question sometimes why people don't trust police officers, why people don't trust the justice system. There's really good reasons why, and you just have to unpack that history. And I thought it was really important for police to know that. And we also thought it was really important for kids to be able to share their stories and their engagement with law officers, both positive and negative. So if we're sending police onto the street, that they know people in the community, and they can do better. The opportunity opened for Eastern State to have a new CEO, and this felt like a perfect mix of everything I did in the Constitution, in education, and in justice to take it even further. How do I see my role as a woman in facing and furthering justice education in America? I think it's really important. Let's be honest, when we talk about justice, when we talk about education and justice, people tend to binary those. They say, oh, justice system is pretty male dominant, typically white male dominant, to be honest with you. And education is very strongly female dominant, especially in the teacher role, and less in the leadership role. So as we think about how we evolve our education system, we need to be able to talk about the hard stuff with every level of education, and we need to empower the entire community to be a part of that. And that includes women leading in the law and moving the law forward, but it also includes people with lived experience and having a voice at the table. We tend to talk about the justice system as something that we all believe in, but we also need to talk about it as something we need to constantly be fixing, because the line in the Constitution isn't we have justice, it's to establish justice. So the unique impact on women and incarceration is something that we as a society are not talking about enough. We did a program this year, just a few months ago, on women and incarceration, talking about the history of it, but also talking about the modern impact. And I was shocked at how many people, both on-site and online, were saying, I could hear it mumbling in the room, I never knew that. I didn't know that. So for example, it's around 75 to 85% of women who are incarcerated, who have committed a crime, are also victims of a crime. That was shocking to them. Most states across the country, you can be in handcuffs while you're giving birth. These were shocking anecdotes for people, but we need to look even closer. We need to look at that the sole provider for so many women who are incarcerated for their children are the women incarcerated. And so when we unpack that and we shine light on that, it's very powerful, but it also asks everybody who's listening to say, go deeper. Do you know somebody? Is it your friend? Is it your family? Is it you yourself that's been impacted by the justice system and has a different perspective because you're female? And when we talk about shedding light on things, that means we need to actually talk about it. There's an inherent shame and embarrassment that comes around incarceration, but that stops us from helping people, that stops us from making stronger communities. And women are the lifeblood of these communities, are highly negatively impacted by the incarceration, and so are children. So we think it's really important. Our job here is to bring understanding, is to bring education, and then connect people with ways that they can take action to change policy and change law around that. So I would suggest to the people watching to look into your state, look into your local laws around how women are treated around medical affairs and pregnancy in your local areas. And if you see something wrong, do something about it. I love when I get, what are your future visions around this? I feel like I should have like a maniacal laugh around that because there's so many. I think it's really important when we think about the justice system, when we think about Eastern State, and we think about empowering women. We have an entire workforce development realm here that we do that's been around for about 6 years that we are expanding. It's preservation trades and it's lead fellowship. Those two programs help ensure that people have high quality jobs and careers in life. Preservation trades is literally what it says. It's in the preservation field. And a target audience for that are people who you don't usually expect to see in the preservation field. So that means women. That means people of color. That is an area that we want to grow and expand. The unions are so powerful in helping us move this forward, and we want to continue that growth. Lead fellowship is another area where people who are incarcerated join the fellowship. So when they come home, they have a reentry program. That's just one wing that we're expanding and the impact that it has on women. We're also doing justice education programs to inform people about women's rights and the unique barriers placed in front of women around the justice system. When we look at these issues, we want to look at incarceration, but we also have to look at the two other sides of it. What's the pipeline to incarceration? Can we stop that before incarceration happens? And on the other side of it is, how do we look at coming home, reentry programs, the strength of community in ensuring that people are more likely to stay home once they come home. That's really powerful. That connection matters throughout the entire process. And also empowering women to be able to make change on the policy level, on the legal level, so that's through the courts, through the justice system, through the law, and also the political level. This matters. Having women's voices at the table matter, and it changes the outcomes for everyone. So I think, how do we change misconceptions of women in prison, and what is the one thing? I'm not doing that work. So I'm indirectly impacted by the justice system, but not directly. And so what my job is to do here is to create place and space for women who are directly justice impacted to share their story and to have their voice. And that changes people's mindsets. When people think about incarceration, like I said earlier, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of pain, but there's also a lot of hope and a lot of power. And what I've watched here by our staff, who is justice impacted, who are women, who choose when they decide when to share that story, is they're changing mindsets every single day. They're changing mindsets because they're leading with power and conviction, with lived experience, and only they can speak to that in a way that nobody else can through their own story. But they're making sure that it's not a single story. It's just not, she was incarcerated. It is, she is all of these powerful pieces, and a part of her story is incarceration, and how can she change that moving forward? So when I think about what we need to do around this and what are those mindsets, is we think of people who are incarcerated, if we're not directly connected to somebody, as others. And we need to stop doing that and see it as our moms, our sisters, our friends, our daughters. And we need to think differently about it, because when you start thinking of people of who they are and name them, you start thinking differently about the justice system overall. So when I first started, I read this book. It's like 90 days, something like that. It's like a 90-day planning. It's for like people coming into a new area. And I talked to a whole bunch of people that had switched major jobs. And so one of the things that you do is that you just listen. You go on like this like adventure of questions, and you keep the same questions. I'm a nerd evaluator at heart, so you want to ask people the same questions so you can compare the answers. And so to get the job, I basically had to do a strategic plan and say, this is what I think we should do. So I took that, and that was before July, and I put it away. I put it like locked in a box over here, and I tried to forget it as much as I could. Then I went on this like listening campaign for 30 days, and really it moved into 90 days. And then I processed through what I was hearing, what people were really excited about, and what barriers and opportunities I heard as well. And then I went back to that document, that pitch document that I did to get the job in the first place, that interview document. And I looked at how they married together. I looked at things that didn't fit, like where's the Venn diagram? Where do they line up? Where are things that are outside of it? And then I drafted these big ideas, and there were 3 big priorities, and there were 8 like sub-priorities. And what I did was I socialized it with the senior team here and said, am I off? Am I doing this right? And I socialized it with the board. And we used that as a template for the first year. Let's experiment. Let's try to go through this process, and let's see what we can learn from it. Again, education. It's not about winning, it's about learning. That's the win there. So went through it, and you got to measure. So you're measuring everything. When we were done that first year, we were able to take that and parlay that into a strategic plan. So within that second year, what we were able to do is write an entire new mission, vision, values, and strategic plan that the entire institution and community had a voice in, and we're talking local community and national community. We're able to rebrand the entire institution, run all of these programs, and see the biggest impact that we've ever had with people across the nation, and then we just launched a new website. So I still feel like there's 32 things on my list that I haven't gotten done that I need to do, but I've also put 300 new ones on. But I'm not doing it alone, I'm doing it as a team. So when you have a leader say that they walked in and they did A, B, C, and D, and they got all of these things done, I would question that. You're not going to be a successful leader unless you're doing it as a community, and you all have your roles and your responsibilities, but at the same time, you're building it as a tapestry and an ecosystem that's working together, because you're all lifting up the institution, not just the person with the CEO title.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
I believe that was all of my questions.
Cool.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Oh, great. That was easy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good